Spencer?
Yeah, how's it going, Chris?
How's it going? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Too. That's Bella.
This is gonna get clipped on your shirt real quick.
We're gonna have the channels that are milled out. You can see the big rolls of carbon fiber there, so we'll cut that. These are what skis look like when they come out of the press. We use the same cast urethane process that we do with our ski sidewalls in the paddles.
What would you say would be some of the challenges of doing manufacturing here in the US? I'm ready to start if you are.
Sure.
Today we are with Spencer. He is head of marketing and sales here at Shaggy Skis. He was nice enough to invite us on a tour of their factory. So we're gonna get to see a made in America, family-owned operation. So super excited to get a tour. So without further ado, can you tell us who you are, what you do here, and then take us on a cool tour?
Yeah, Spencer, sales and marketing at Shaggy's, and run the social media as well. Manufacture skis right here in Michigan, which is awesome. Really proud to do it. We've been around since 2008. Ship skis all over North America now, and even occasionally overseas. Do lots of custom stuff. If you want, something unique and cool, like, we're the people to come to. It's not like the big brands where this is your graphic and this is the stock and this is the only thing you can get. We can customize construction, we can customize graphics, and then of course we've got all our standard shapes and graphics and everything too. So,
yeah, right on. And wait, how long have you been working for Shaggy's?
Since 2019.
And how did you originally get into a role like this? Because I can say for myself, when I graduated college, being head of sales and marketing at a ski company would have been like my literal dream job. So for anyone out there that is interested in getting into a very cool position like you have, what did you do prior to getting into this role?
Well, I started out as a customer. So,
okay, nice.
So
that always helps.
I bought my own pair of Shaggy's, did some research, came and demoed skis. They were in a different building at that point, like across the road.
Okay.
But demoed skis, loved them, obviously knew what they were all about because I was a customer. So I didn't come from a sales or a marketing background.
Yeah.
But in the interview, the first question was like, well, are you passionate about skiing? And I mean, they could answer that question for me because they knew me,
yeah,
because I was a customer. But yeah, that's the biggest thing is you got to be passionate about what you do. And obviously if you're somebody who's, oh, skiing's cool, but I'm not really that into it, like probably not the place to work.
Yeah,
but yeah, if you're really into skiing and can be in this area, it's a pretty rural area up here in northern Michigan, so it's not like we have a huge population to pull from for employees. But if you can make it work living in this area, then it's a great place to work, and obviously it doesn't really feel like work when you're just getting to talk to people about skis every day. So
yeah, that's awesome. Fun. And did you relocate here, or?
I did.
Okay, where were you at before?
I was a couple hours south of here.
Okay.
In central part of the Lower Peninsula.
Okay,
and then when this came up, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'll gladly move up north, and way more interesting here in terms of outdoor recreation and everything else than where I was living before. It was more like farm field area that you drove through yesterday.
Yeah, so. I was gonna say, we had a long trek it was like 11 hours to get here because I was coming from Virginia. So I got a hotel last night and then obviously here today. So yeah, excited to go check it out. I guess you want to bring us inside and let's go see what we have to see. And so how long have you been skiing for?
Oh, 5 years old.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it's been a lifetime thing. So
yeah, right on. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. We got some safety glasses.
Got some safety glasses here.
Sweet. Thank you.
I've got...
Giving them to the camera people as well.
This is our little, showroom that, we don't have a huge amount of sales. The vast majority of our sales are going to be online, where people buy on our website and we're shipping the skis out to them. But we get some decent foot traffic in here. Okay. Obviously, having Boyne Mountain right down the road helps a lot in that respect. And then this is a big summer destination too, so you get lots of people from different areas that spend their summers around here. Yeah. So we'll get foot traffic that comes in here, and obviously you can give tours and show people all the steps in the process, which is always cool too. And
so what would you say obviously you're sales and marketing, so what percentage of sales do you think are coming from like online orders versus actual like foot traffic into the storefront?
Probably, well into the 90s, north of 90%, that's online.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And what's the farthest you've seen you had to ship a pair of skis to somebody? What's like the farthest destination that have ordered
We're building a pair right now for somebody in Dubai.
Really?
And then we shipped a pair earlier this year to Japan.
Okay.
And then we've had multiple pairs like this ski season that have gone to Europe as well.
Really?
So,
hey, wait, is there places to ride in Dubai? I didn't even know Dubai had.
They have an indoor place.
Got it. Yeah. There you go. I was gonna say riding out some sand.
Or sand dunes or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Thank you.
So we'll start chronologically.
Yep. And do you know what this building was before Shaggy's was here?
Some kind of industrial purpose. I don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah.
We were running out of space at our previous location, which was just down the road in Boyne City. And this was about twice the size of the spot where we were before, so it works a lot better for us.
Yeah, right on. And I assume you guys built out this entire like manufacturing facility from like where the tools are gonna go, to, like ductwork, like everything.
Yeah, you know, like obviously putting the CNC tables where they needed to be, having all the racks and everything optimized for how we wanted to use it production-wise. We're big on having all our processes be as lean as possible. So, okay, where does it make the most sense for us to do this process finished, and that process is gonna need to go here, and obviously not walk it all the way across the building and back. Have everything be very sequentially laid out and you know, as lean as we can be. So yeah, we're big on that.
And how long did it take to build out the entire facility to where you could actually move into it and start using it?
Not long.
Really?
I mean, yeah. I remember when we first got this place, we spent like an entire weekend getting a bunch of stuff moved in. After that first weekend, we were 80% of the way there. And then obviously there's been a lot of minor changes made along the way. But yeah, probably after the first couple weeks, we were 95% of the way there where we needed to be. So.
Way faster.
It was pretty quick.
Than I would have thought you would have said. Crazy how much goes into building a pair of skis. It's pretty wild. But cool. All right, so yeah, where do we start? I assume maybe wood?
Yes, with wood. So Mattel Ski is the lumber mill. It's actually like right near the base of the ski area. At Boyne Mountain, where we get our lumber from. We'll get that delivered, you know, a couple times a month, something like that. And when the boards come in, they need to be planed, so we will plane them as needed. And then after they've been planed, we cut them into strips. All of these are cut, and then you can see that contraption over there. We flex test every strip. We're using almost entirely ash and poplar are the two woods that we're going to use. And then after it's been flex tested, we assign, you know, ratings to it. It gets categorized, and then we know when we're laminating a pair of skis. So laminating is just gluing strips together. So we use the wood glue there. We'll laminate the strips in a certain orientation, and then we don't have any right now, but they would be here in these clamps. And then once they cure, you're gonna have core blank. So these are core blanks. So obviously two of these are gonna make a single pair of ski cores. So they will then go on, I mean, you can see right here. So these are two core blanks that just got put on the CNC. And then we're gonna have the channels that are milled out that'll come off the CNC machine. These will go into our urethane room. And we'll pour liquid urethane into that channel.
Into the channel,
And then, you know, just pump it in there. It's a liquid. That'll cure overnight and harden. And then once these have cured, they'll go back on the CNC, go through a second cut, and then it's gonna look like this when it comes off the CNC.
And what's the purpose of taking the wood and then stripping it?
Having the, you know, the narrower strips that are then glued together gives you a lot more strength than if it was just one wider piece. So yeah, the laminating is going to give you just much better, you know, torsional rigidity. So then once it comes off the CNC for the second time, you know, Gabe's working right now on just cleaning up some of the little burrs and stuff on a core. So yeah, like that pair of cores is pretty much ready to go at that point. So by using that urethane, what we used to do a few years ago was for the sidewalls, we would just glue the sidewalls on using a UHMW plastic. But this urethane process with pouring it in as a liquid, you know, casting it, it just gives us a lot better bond. So it when it's a liquid, it can seep into the wood grain. So it's a better bond than if you're just gluing it on. So yeah, works pretty well. For the bases, so you can see we've got the 2 rolls of UHMW plastic here. So generally what we do to minimize waste and just kind of give our signature look, we use this color swap is what we call it on the bases. So one of the skis is going to have a blue base and the other is going to have a black base. Those get cut on here. So like, you know, this is one that was cut on this CNC. So you can see the Shaggies, letters that have been cut there.
Yep.
And then what we'll do with this is we will pop the letters out, the black letters, pop the blue letters out, and just swap them. It's pretty nice because we don't have to throw away the letters. We can just switch those
smart.
over and use that. And then this is kind of turned into a signature look. You know, most people who are fairly familiar with our brand know that they're probably going to see a blue and a black base on a pair of skis. Then we also have a plastic tail bumper that goes and kind of wraps around the tail of the ski. Same for the tip as well, that you're not having the wood core run right to the tip and right to the tail of the ski, because, you know, generally if you're going to have damage to your ski, you're going to be hitting something, whether it's with the tail or with the tip. So you know, by not having the wood core extend right to the very tip and the very tail, and having some plastic there, the plastic obviously can take, it's much more elastic than wood is. You know, wood, if it takes an impact, it might just crack. Whereas plastic, it can crack as well, but it's a lot more likely to take it and to rebound, or maybe have a minor, you know, abrasion on it or something like that.
And so is this plastic is actually what's touching the snow when you're riding? I guess
these are
minus
the
wax. Wax.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many different lines or like styles of skis do you guys carry?
We've got 16 models.
Okay.
Which would be all unique individual shapes. And then of course, you know, there are a couple models we have that only have 2 lengths, but most of those models are going to have between 4 and 6 lengths available in those shapes. We've got camber pockets that we build into some of the models, so it's going to be how much a ski, you know, generally between like the contact points at the tip and the tail is going to rise off the, you know, like if you lay a ski down on the ground, if it's got a lot of camber, if it's not weighted at all, it's actually going to like rise off the ground for most of its length. And then obviously when you weight it, you know, that's going to, you know, be flat on the ground. But camber helps you carving performance generally, and then rocker, which is the kind of the opposite. It's, you know, more of like a banana shape. So, you know, generally you're gonna have rocker in the tips and the tail, some amount of that. And usually the wider the ski is, you know, the softer snow it's aimed for, you're going to have more of that deeper into the tip and tail. That is going to give you more of like a surfy, floaty feeling. So playing with how much camber a ski has, how much rocker it's got in the tip and the tail, that has a big effect on how carving focused is it going to be, or how focused is it going to be on ski and switch and being like a super playful park ski that you can just spin and, you know, hit rails on really easily, or how is it going to perform in powder and crud and, you know, off-piste conditions where you're not just laying down arcs and carving on a groomer. You know, when you're skiing trees, you're not really carving, you're smearing and pivoting and that kind of stuff. So
and you said you've been riding your whole life. What's your like preferred style of riding?
I like to be off-piste if the snow warrants it.
Wait, so, what's it, off-piste?
Off-piste would be you're not on groomed trails.
It's like trees, backcountry
trees,
type?
Bowls, you know, bump runs, any of that kind of stuff where they're generally not going to take a groomer down it every single morning or every single night. Like, you know, when I go out west, I just got back a couple weeks ago from a trip out to the Tetons, so I was at Jackson Hole and Grand Targhee. The snow was pretty good, and we were on groomers occasionally to like link up to get to places where we wanted to, but we were generally skiing trees and skiing, you know, chutes and bowls and all that kind of stuff. And then we had a couple days of backcountry skiing. You know, you're fully ungroomed terrain and not patrolled. We have our avalanche gear with us, and we're just touring, skinning up to try to find good turn. You can see the big rolls of carbon fiber there too. So we'll cut that on this CNC. And then we've got the carbon fiber, different widths and lengths of it here, depending on the ski. Some skis get carbon fiber only below the core, and it might be a, you know, just a thinner strip. Some get both below and above, and it's gonna be a thicker strip. So, you know, this all depends on the specific model and length. We've got that here. We've got this area is where the edges are going to be attached to the bases. We've got the different lengths of the steel edge that we've already pre-cut to the different lengths we offer for a bunch of different models. This little machine here with the pneumatic system, we can pop that on, and then there are a couple different kinds of glue that'll be used to glue that on.
To glue the edge on?
To glue the edge on, So the teeth will be on the inside, like under all the other layers.
Got it.
And then there's a cove there to it. That'll slot right in and holds it up against the base. So you glue it in, and then it's just going to cure and sit nicely there on the base. We'll anneal it, so you're basically taking a torch, you're heating it up, and then that'll help to get that bend be consistent right at the tip and the tail of the ski. So you can see there that the edges are glued onto those bases.
And then, so the press, I assume, is where you're actually going to be doing that camber rocker like you were talking about, nose and tail. That's where that process happens, correct?
We'll go over here.
Go over there to do that? Okay, let's do it.
So this is our layup station here.
Okay.
And then we've got the four
And
press bays
what's a
behind
layup
us.
station mean? What does that mean?
So when you're constructing skis and going through that sandwich construction, you refer to that as a layup. You're going to start bottom up to the top. So, you're going with the bases. Most skis are going to be fiberglass, carbon fiber, the wood core, more fiberglass on top, potentially carbon fiber on top, and then you're going the top sheet. There are rubber damping strips that are laid in between a bunch of those as well. And then all of those, essentially like the glue holding everything together, is epoxy. So we've got our two-part epoxy up top, this pump, which is operated by the foot pedal down there, and then there would be a mixing tip on this. So those two parts are coming down here and then running through this like swirled mixing tip. And then, epoxy is just resin glue, basically. And then as those are being laid up, we use little scrapers to evenly distribute that across each layer. And then you're just stacking it up. And then the top mold is going to go on. And then when everything is ready, it's going to go into the press. So this is an air bladder. So that'll fill up. We've got our interface here. And then these are heat blankets. So those have a ton of tiny little wires running through them. So between the heat and the pressure, then ski will be in the press for about a half an hour. Comes out and it's cooked essentially like that epoxy as.
So it's just 30 minutes is all it takes?
About,
Wow, okay, that's crazy.
It's pretty quick.
And
then they'll come out, they're literally hot off the press.
Literally.
You pull them out of the cassette and they're one piece. And all that epoxy has, cured and hardened. All those layers are together, and then at that point they're going to go through the finishing process. Oh, and I'll show you the top sheet as well. That's right over here, so we can show you the top sheet printing. So for our top sheets, obviously as a ski's being pressed, this is going to be the uppermost layer.
And so what type of material?
This is a nylon.
A nylon.
That we use. So we've got a matte and a gloss. So for any top sheet, some models we use a matte, some we use a gloss, and then if somebody's getting a custom graphic, they can choose which one they want. Just depending on the look they're going for. So we'll print off just on paper with ink. Print off the graphic. Really, just like any special ink you guys have to use? Oh, I see. So, these are not as vibrant because these have already been sublimated, going through the sublimation press, but it would have been, very vibrant colors when it gets printed off. And then the paper will just be laid on here. You'll lay the nylon of choice on top of it, basically cut it to length so it's going to fully cover the graphic. And then you just take the paper with the nylon on top of it, stick it in the sublimation press. It's in there for 3.5 minutes or so. And in that press, the ink sublimates, so it goes directly from a solid into a gas, and then it transfers into the nylon. So then once these have been sublimated, almost all of our graphics, to make the colors pop, they're going to, on the back side, get a flood coat applied, which is basically like a primer. If you don't flood coat it, you see through to, whatever layers are below. So it's, most skis, it's going to be like a lot of the wood core you'll see maybe a little bit of carbon fiber. Like this one here, this graphic, basically this center part is clear and didn't get a flood coat. And then these other areas, we would have had a custom mask that we print off and leave that there so that, we tape it off. And then you're going to see the colors really pop in these areas and see more muted colors, but see through to the wood core for this one.
Oh, that's so cool.
And
so is this also where you can do not just like your typical graphics, you can also do custom graphics, right? And do you have like an in-house graphic designer, or do they just send you, and whatever they send you, you just make, or how's that process?
Yeah, Sean's our in-house graphic designer.
Okay.
So I would say almost entirely with custom graphics, he has to do some amount of formatting or scaling or something like that. Or then we get a lot of people who give us napkin drawings, basically, of like, hey, I want this element on the tips and this element on the tails and this overall color scheme, and like, can you guys just make it happen?
Yeah.
He can do that. And then basically the last step it has to go through.
Thank you.
Yep. So it'll come back to the finishing area. So these are what skis look like when they come out of the press.
Okay, yep.
One piece.
Yep, with that top graphic.
Yep.
That's
So
cool.
that's a Northern Lights ski. You can see, all the excess overlap of the fiberglass. There's epoxy that, is, like I said, rock hard. That was a custom pair we did for a guy.
Oh, sick.
So he wanted the space UFO theme. So
And was that one of those back of the napkin
yes. Yeah.
designs, and then y'all...
Yep, Sean, he I think he sent some photos of like, hey, this is kind of the vibe I'm going for. And then I know we had like the colors were a little different at first. There was like a little more orange, and he asked for, more yellow. Let's like make the UFO a little bigger and stuff. So yeah. So we always want there to be, we call this a bleed.
Okay.
How it's got the inch of excess.
Yeah.
So, any graphic we design, we're never going to just design it to end right at the edge of the ski.
Yeah.
Because you always need to count for potential shifting, which is usually very minor if it does happen at all. But you need to keep that in mind. And then, obviously you want people, generally, they're going to be looking at the graphic when they're stopped on their skis or on a lift or something like that. They're looking down. Their skis are going to be fairly close to each other, but nobody's like generally having the tips, touching the entire time. So you got to account for there being this little bit of a gap, and we try to do that with the graphics so that it's not like, oh, here's where the edge of the ski is, and we're just going to have it pick up, immediately here right on the other ski. It's going to be a weird look. So you got to kind of account for like, hey, there's going to be this little gap, and you just want it to naturally look
like it's aligned clean with the person's stance.
And somebody can kind of imagine in their head what the gap in between is going to look like.
Every little detail.
Oh yeah, lots of thought that's gone into it.
Yeah.
These skis, as they're back here, cut them apart on the bandsaw is going to be the first step. Get them pretty, looking pretty good at that point once they're done on the bandsaw. But obviously a lot of cleaning that needs to happen beyond. So with these different grinders and belt sanders and stuff, they're going to go through this process. And then we've got our Wintersteiger Scout here, which is a really cool piece of machinery. So this gets used as skis are being finished, or if somebody, like we do tuning on skis as well. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want my skis waxed and sharpened, and maybe they need a base grind, we can do all that too. So you can see we've got the diamond stone in there. And then this is a pretty cool machine because like these suction cups here, you put one ski in at a time, it'll grab the ski and it just runs it through, and whatever the base and edge, bevels that you're going to set onto the ski, it can handle that. It can, put a pattern into the base. So yeah, pretty cool piece of machinery for sure. When they're done here, they're almost fully ready to go. So then, like, John is just in the final steps here, finishing up. There are 82 processes.
Oh, wow.
That we use throughout the construction of a pair of skis. And then generally depending on the model, because some models are a little more complex than others, you're looking at 6 to 8 hours of labor that goes into a pair of skis. Obviously, that's spread over multiple days.
Got it. And that's just of labor. And then how long does it typically take to go from wood in a pile to a finished pair of skis you can ride?
Usually between the top sheet graphic being printed out, all those different steps, from when an order is placed, it's like something super urgent. In a week, we could probably have a pair of skis built and finished and then ready to go.
Yeah, so over 80 processes, a week to get the whole things put together. What's like the average price point for all of that work to get a rideable pair of skis?
Most skis you're looking at between that $749 and $999 window there.
I mean, for everything that's going into them, I think that's very understandable to have that price point, just because, I mean, just seeing the entire process is insane. And then I also saw that you have, well, we actually are standing by some, you also have pickleball stuff, paddles laying around as we were going. What are these? What is going on with pickleball in relation to skis?
So we've got our sister company, Thompson Pickleball.
Okay.
That I think paddles were first released for sale to the public about a year ago.
Okay.
But, you know, it's been in process a lot longer than that. Obviously, there's a lot of R&D that went behind these.
Is anything set these paddles apart from like something you could just buy at like Dick's Sporting Goods or Walmart?
The sidewalls would be a big thing. So we use the same cast urethane process that we do with our ski sidewalls in the paddles. Almost all pickleball paddles are going to have just like a plastic edge guard that's glued on around the edge to protect the edge.
Yeah.
Whereas with ours, you know, if you're gluing something on at the edge of a material, you're going to have, you know, the further away you get from the center, you're losing power and rebound and other beneficial properties.
Yeah.
You know, same with a tennis racket or something. If you hit it way out here, a lot of times it doesn't go where you want it to go, or not with the same velocity you want. Well, if we use this cast urethane and don't have to glue this sidewall on, it's going to give us a bigger sweet spot. So you can kind of see here on this one how, you know, it gets machined a little bit, so it's a little bit of like a bulb, you know, bulbous edge to it. And the fact that they're made here. A lot of the companies that would be based in the United States, if they say assembled in the United States, they're usually getting parts from China, and they're, you know, 40, 50, 70% finished, and then they do the last little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like we're, you know, on the one CNC that we cut the bases out on, we're taking big sheets of the, you know, the foam honeycomb, cutting those out. We grade them by hand, so we're taking a caliper and making sure the consistency is where we need it to be. You know, we're casting the urethane in molds just like we do with the ski sidewalls, putting everything together. So it's pretty cool that it's, you know, start to finish here as well.
Yeah, here in the U.S. And what are some benefits to either having, I guess, a pickleball paddle or skis that are made here in the U.S. versus somewhere else in the world?
Well, I mean, give people like me jobs, right? I mean, that's a big one.
Very
if we
true.
If we were making skis, you know, overseas, I mean, I guess I'm in sales, so theoretically I could, you know, potentially still be selling skis here in the U.S., but we've got people that work in production here because we produce our skis. And then just quality control is a big thing, too. You know, it's not like, hey, we had a bad batch from the factory over in Asia, and we got to contact them and see if we can figure out this language barrier and figure out what's going on. Like, if we have something come out, whether it's pickleball or skis, that, hey, this isn't great, it's like, well, okay, let's walk over here and figure out what the issue is. And how do we remedy that.
And then what would you say would be some of the challenges of doing manufacturing here in the U.S.?
Cost is a big one.
Okay.
You know, I mean, skis, same with pickleball paddles too. You know, somebody's like, well, you know, geez, they're not the cheapest thing out there. I could go on evo.com and get a pair of lines that are, you know, last year's model on clearance for $500, and, you know, your skis I'm gonna have to pay $700 plus. And it's like, well, you know, our skis are also made here. It seems like every year there are more and more people who really appreciate that. And we do have people that reach out like, hey, I'd never heard of your guys' brand, but saw an ad on social media, saw that you guys make your skis in the US, like, I'm gonna buy a pair from you just because I really believe in that. But definitely not everybody shares that same sentiment, and a lot of people are pretty price conscious, and rightfully so. So, you know, that's a big one. And then obviously, you know, like, materials are expensive, and we've had a lot of, especially since COVID, a lot of increases in price for materials. You know, we try to source for materials everything as close to us as we possibly can, but since COVID, that, you know, shipping and everything else has, you know, really increased. So it's obviously, we've had to raise prices some, but we try to do that as little as possible because it's hard on consumers as well. When it's like, hey, I bought a pair of your skis 5 years ago, and they were, you know, 50 or $100 cheaper back then. It's like, well, stuff is expensive. Back here too is our little photo booth. We use this to take pictures, like any custom ski we make. We always like to take photos of. That's always been really successful on social media for us.
That's really cool. And then obviously you're on sales and marketing, like we said. So anything you've done to try and grow the Shaggy Ski brand?
Highlighting our unique traits. So custom stuff, the flexibility, you know, if we've got a new model in the works that we're out like testing and doing some R&D out, like showing like, hey, we got this prototype that we're out spending time on, and that's cool because it's us that work here that are providing the input of what do we want this ski to be like, as opposed to like, oh, it's some pro rider that is only on our brand because, you know, we sponsor him or something like that. So yeah, just highlighting everything that makes us unique, and then obviously the made in the United States and made in Michigan specifically. You know, those are all big, and then like community is big too. So, you know, we call our customers the Shaggy's family. Okay. And it seems like there's a lot of brand loyalty. You know, people are very proud.
Our cameraman's pointing to himself.
People are very proud to own Shaggy Skis.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, we get a lot of people. There's just a guy that came in that has had Shaggy's for a few years now, and he bought Shaggy's for his wife yesterday when they were in here, and he said, you know, I was just out in Aspen a few weeks ago, and like, it's always cool that people who know what Shaggy's is almost always make comments in the, you know, in the line for the lift, or I get questions on like, what kind of skis are those? And he's like, I feel like I'm an evangelist for you guys. Like I'm telling your story, and like they're made in Michigan, like they're super cool people. You can call them up and talk to the people who build your skis. So the community thing is huge for us. And I mean, the number of customers who, after they get their first pair, end up getting additional pairs is so high.
That's so cool.
You know,
that's so cool.
Like the customer retention is huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, you know, or the biggest compliment I would say any business could have is a repeat customer.
Yeah, you know, like we're authentic, and we're just about skiing and having a good time, and that's what, you know, being a Shaggy's family member is all about. So just show people like, hey, like we do it because we love it. We don't do it because we're in it to make tons of money. We don't do it because it gives us like some crazy amount of prestige or anything. We do it because it's our passion. And, you know, have us show that to you.
I mean, it's super cool to, like you're saying, you're not just like a bunch of people trying to push a product down a customer's throat. You literally are passionate about what you were making and selling, which is super cool. What's your favorite part about working and being a part of the Shaggy's family?
I mean, I guess that it doesn't feel like work, right? Like when you go home and you're like, oh yeah, it was busy today, sold a bunch of skis, I got to talk to a bunch of people. You know, when somebody calls and they're like, hey, can I talk to you about my skiing? And I'm like, sure, yeah. Like that, it's never really a bad day here. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome, and you know, it's a very cool place to be. I mean, we've had a great winter this year, so it's, you know, a lot of times I leave work and Boyne Mountain has night skiing, and I can be at the parking lot for the Meadows lift in like 8 minutes from here. You know, go ski after work, take some laps, you know, going and skiing on weekends, take a trip out west. I mean, it's like when your hobbies align with what your job is, I mean, that's kind of everybody's goal, right?
Yeah, that is the dream, I feel like, for, I think most people growing up is like, I want to do something and every day not feel like you're going to school and sitting there getting lectured. Like, same thing with work. I know so many people that every single day they wake up and then they go home and they complain about what they did. So that's awesome to hear that for you. That's not the way your life has shaped out. You're actually getting to do something that you're passionate about and really enjoy. Yeah,
and then when I take a phone call or answer an email or somebody's in the showroom, like nobody's ever disappointed. You know, when they call, it's not like, oh gosh, I was dreading making this phone call. You know, they're always like, oh yeah, if you have a few minutes, I'd love to talk to you about some skis. It's like, absolutely. Or they come in the showroom and they're looking around and they're like, wow, like you guys make some cool stuff. Like everybody's happy when they're, you know, talking about skiing and thinking about buying new skis, and, you know, they get their new skis and they send us a photo when they're unboxing it. Like, you know, nobody thinks of it as like an obligation or like, oh, this is, well, this is adulting. You know, everybody's like back to being a kid. What are they most excited about?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I have something I want to give you, and then we can wrap it up. It's very small, so don't get too excited. Cool. So, once again, appreciate you letting us come out here, showing us, taking time out of your day to show us the factory, show what you guys got going on. So, once again, I'm not a graphic designer by any means or a manufacturer, but I did make you a cool little custom sweatshirt.
Oh, sweet. Got the shop on it.
Yeah,
nice.
So I took a photo offline and kind of you know, do my best in Photoshop to make you
Sweet.
a little something. I got the logo, official guest. So
Awesome.
once again, didn't know what size you were either, so I just did an XL because
Hey, that'll work.
I feel like whenever you're, you know, in the ski snowboard community, you want to have the oversized hoodies for the
Right.
powder days. And so if people do want to check out everything you guys have to offer, find you on social media, buy some skis, where can they find you? Where can they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so our website is skishaggies.com, and then if you look Shaggy Skis on Instagram or Facebook, you know, we're pretty active on social. And obviously here, always feel free if you're in the neck of the woods to stop here at our shop in Boyne City, Michigan.
Yeah, I would highly recommend anyone out there, if you do find yourselves out here, come by, say hi. Everyone's been super nice, and once again, really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, Chris.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
All right, cool. I appreciate it. Once again, that was fun.